Welcome back to another episode of Contagious Victories. I have a very special guest here today in person, in the flesh. Today we're talking with Dan Heiser, who is a historian and author and a whole lot of other things. A very interesting creative.
Too many things.
Too many things, which is what I love about you, Dan. And we are friends in real life. Like we knew each other.
A while.
Yes, for a couple years now.
5 years? No, 5 years now.
Yeah, 2019.
Wow.
And so we've been through a lot together, and
That's
I'm
for
excited to have you on the show.
And I'm glad to be here.
Welcome.
This is exciting.
Well, all of our lovely listeners who don't know you, can you give a little bit of a firsthand description about yourself?
Yeah. So briefly, ventured into a lot of things, traveled a lot, been a little spoiled because of it. But I'd say after coming home from Ireland, after I took a gap year from college, went into my undergrad of game design, then changed to my master's in history, and now I'm pursuing my PhD in history, and I'll be graduating next year after my dissertation is completed. And then everything between that has been cosplay to 30,000 followers on TikTok, and then I eventually quit that and left. Hello, Winston.
Dog owner. Welcome,
Very
Winston.
big dog owner. Publishing 4 books, and then took a while off of that. Now I'm finally getting back into it.
So you're getting back into writing. I know you have an Instagram for book lovers that you share
I do.
all of your writing.
It's
and
more so book memes at this point,
reads.
but still.
Well, and then a lot of writing stuff too. When you're going through that writing journey, you're telling little stories using reels and things to promote your writing.
Yep.
So you've got that. And the way we know each other is we worked together both at the TV station a few years back and met a couple days before we hosted our own little show at Pentacon at a little convention.
Emergency hosting. Yes. I was terrified.
And I'll add this. In the meantime, this is February 2020. So the whole time while all this is going on.
A month before everything hit the fan.
I remember seeing some news stories and like, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
China.
This 2020 thing. No. So
what happened? Like a month later, everything went to hell in a handbasket.
Everything, the world was completely different. We pulled through. Our creativeness got us through.
I think our creativeness got us through it.
Yes. Got us through that whole year. Now we're both in different places doing different things, and you have quite a lot of victory stories to be proud about. So
as well you.
Thank you. Well, we're not talking about me today. We're talking about you. And so I want us to take it back to the beginning. Can you tell me the first time that you really realized that you were going to be an author or a writer?
You want the truth?
Yeah.
5 years old.
5 years old. Okay.
I've been writing since I can remember. Remember those like half days at school? So like my dad worked, my mother worked. So I'd go back with her to work.
Okay.
And I'd sit in her little office waiting to go home, making up these stupid children's stories about like farm animals and stuff.
Yeah.
And that never died. That's the one thing that I've done creatively that has never died. Cosplay, I've done, it died. I want to get back into it, but I haven't. Like the only time I really do is when I get into Flynn Rider for Renaissance fairs, and that's it.
I like that character a lot.
Who doesn't?
I know, he's great.
Honestly, he's the best. Like I will say this to the day I die, Tangled is the last good Disney movie ever made.
I love Tangled. That one's my favorite, and it has a special place in my heart.
100%.
So what I'm hearing you say is that you have always enjoyed making up elaborate stories, you know, even from such a really young age. The writing thing has been something that has brought you joy.
Yeah. It's escapism, but it's freedom, and it's able to give back to everybody. It's hey, whatever you're going through, read.
And you're currently in the middle of writing a book right now.
I am.
Well, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I've dabbled a lot in fantasy. One day I want to actually publish one of my fantasy works, but I have that an idea pops up. It can't fit into this, so it creates a new project. But what I really fall back into every time is historical fiction.
Okay.
And so what I'm working on now is it starts right after the war.
Which war?
World War II.
Okay.
An RAF, Royal Air Force, POW, comes home after being a POW for 5 years and ends up basically finding out his wife remarried He literally just married her like right before the
Oh
war
man.
starts. Yeah, it's bad. He finds out right after because
Ouch.
assumed dead, and so basically he divorces his wife, runs to America, meets up with one of his friends he made in the POW camp, falls in love with this guy's sister, and then when he comes back home, he has to choose between becoming the next line in the earldom or her.
And she's in a different country. She's an American. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds really interesting. And you are taking a lot of inspiration from interests that you have.
Yep.
And you're a historian. So talk a little bit about that. I've never had a historian on the show.
Okay. It really started when I was 4 years old.
Okay. So even before the writing,
Yeah,
you liked
way,
history.
way before the
Okay.
writing. I saw Titanic in
Oh, yeah.
1997. My my parents showed a 4-year-old the VHS, covered the eyes, the inappropriate parts.
I remember my mom did the same thing to me. She was like, "You need to see this movie.
You need to see this movie, but
not this part." Yeah, exactly, exactly.
I can still remember that day by day. And so yeah, I got obsessed with Titanic.
Oh.
I studied that ship forward and backwards for, oh God, 20 years.
Well, are any of your books themed around that?
My first one.
Okay.
The one that not many can actually get because it's out of publishing right now because it's a horrible write.
Well, I think the first of anything, you learn a lot after when you do the first one. But guess what?
You do.
I was going to say, you can't let the fear of the first one keep you from doing it.
No,
so
you can't.
now you're on your fourth.
You also learn lessons.
Yeah. Or you're on your fifth.
I'm on the fifth.
You're on the fifth.
Yeah.
So you have 4 books.
The first book is These 4 Days. That's the Titanic one. The second one is Where I've Been. The third one is It Begins in Rye, which was supposed to be a 6-book series, but I kind of lost the entire second book.
Oh no! Like
Due to
physically?
Winston.
Oh no! Winston is his dog, and oh my goodness, he ate your homework.
He did.
Oh,
No, he really did.
Oh man.
So my mother found, like, I asked her for my laptop that had my capstone project on it, and she gave it to me for a brief time because I gave it to her, and I found the book, took it off, and put it on a flash drive.
Yeah.
Winston got bored one day and ate the flash drive.
Oh no! And you must love Winston because he is still here.
He's still alive 2 years later.
You didn't give him away,
but I'm actually kind of glad.
Oh, and there he is. Winston has a lot to say about it, I guess.
I'm actually kind of glad because when I first wrote it, it wasn't believable. Because like I'm the historical fiction author who believes every historical event in the book has to be 100% factual. Like you can't change it, any of that.
Yeah.
So the first draft was completely historically accurate, but just unbelievable. The second draft, which I was really liking, was eaten by Winston.
Oh.
And I'm glad it did because now I can eventually, and this was supposed to be published back in like 2019.
Okay.
We're what, 5 years later?
I see what you're saying about having the historical part of the historical fiction and really being passionate about that because you're a historian. So, you know, we both share a love for theater, but one of the things about theater that I remember learning is that you have to have those real parts be 100% real because your audience is going to know. And then you'd rather it be, you know, a fictional story, but using the real things that happened and have them be correct and interesting and have that audience base love that because it's real stuff that you're talking about. And you can envision the stories just taking place during that time, even if they came from your imagination. So that's really interesting. And I think that it's very admirable that you are taking it so seriously and making sure that, you know, you haven't put something out there as a second volume
just
of
to
it.
get it out.
Just to get it out that you you want to wait. And there's been a couple other books that have come out since that one or since the first of that series. And those don't have anything to do with that series. And these are different. Tell us about those.
The one that follows It Begins in Rye, because that was the third published, is Dear Tarquin.
Okay.
It's a short story. It's like 50 pages, can be read in an hour. That one, it's about 50 or so pages long. And the only reason why I wrote it is because I am dead set. And I pray to God the day I get married, whoever that lucky woman is, she will go with what I said because I've dreamed about my kids, and I know their names. I really the firstborn, Tarquin Charles, and I named the book after Tarquin.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's probably why I stuck with it.
Aw.
But it's a short story about basically a dad who writes his son letters. Like every chapter opens up with the letter, so it's
Oh,
first
wow.
person, and then the rest of the chapter is actually being there. So it's American visualization from I believe D-Day to the end of the war.
Oh, wow. And it's from the dad writing to his son.
Yep.
That is so interesting. I like that.
It's
Like
gotten mixed reviews.
a like I could see.
I think it's sitting at a 4.5 on Amazon right now.
Okay.
And it's mostly the reason why is because of the change of POV. Literally, the first page is the letter, and then the rest of the chapter is the third person point of view of the war. Like some people like it, some people hate it,
I
but
like that. I
that's
mean,
everything.
I need to read it. I think that I would like that. I think that sounds really interesting and very different. Like
It was a different
yeah.
travel down when I actually wrote it myself. So it was like something I never tried and never actually saw in any form of reading material. And I was like, I'm down. I'm going to try it. I don't care if it flops. I'm still going to publish it.
Well, that's a really good attitude to have as a young author because I feel like we were saying earlier, the first or second, few things that we try, we have to learn from them. And I think that you never really learn if you never try. And so
No.
you have to get that out and get it out of you, whether it's a book, a song, whatever you're writing or
And
creating.
that's also the beauty of self-publishing
Yeah.
because
Okay. So
you're not restricted to the traditionalists. Like I want to do traditional and I'm going to try for this one. But the first start is getting an agent. And that's not the easy part.
I was going to say, I know nothing about publishing and writing books other than just it takes a lot of patience with yourself, a lot of creativity. I want you to talk a little bit about self publishing. We might have someone who is thinking about doing that one day
Yeah.
or writing a book themselves. And do you have any advice to give to someone like that?
It's not hard.
Okay.
It's
Really?
not, it's no, it's not. Everybody makes it out to seem like it is. I'm not the type to do crowdfundings. I want to just to like actually have the like for the next one the stability of actually being able to afford the book
Yeah.
because putting like the hardest part of self-publishing is you're putting your own money into everything.
Yeah.
Um, you got to pay the cover artists. You got to pay an editor if you get one, which I always recommend. So the horror story of the first book, it comes down to the person I hired as the publisher. He ran through the whole, like, this is how I actually know how to actually self-publish because he helped me. The problem was that he told me, edit it yourself. The first draft, edit yourself, of course.
Yeah.
Like read it, make sure it makes sense, make sure it flows, make sure like you catch the grammatical errors that you can catch on your own, but you definitely need to hire someone because they're going to like a fresh pair of eyes is going to see something different that you didn't catch. You can always reject the comments or accept the comments. But having a second pair of eyes is always a must. So that's going to cost money. The cover art's going to cost money. If you decide to buy an ISBN, which is the little barcode number at the end,
Yeah.
that's going to cost money. The price may have gone up now because I haven't done it since 2018, but it was quite a bit for like one alone.
Do
But
you have to get a separate one for each?
every single book.
Oh,
But
wow.
that's why they recommend buying like packs of 5 and 10
Okay.
because you can eventually just like either give it to a friend or put it on your own.
Yeah. I didn't even know that.
The important part is, and Amazon offers free ones, which is even better.
Oh, okay.
The problem with Amazon's free ones, though, is you can't sell it in Books a Million, Barnes and
only-
Nobles. It's only on Amazon.
Yeah. Well, as we know, the Amazon didn't start off as a marketplace that sold everything.
No.
It was just books.
Yeah.
And earlier you mentioned that you have your books on Amazon.
Yep.
So if someone's curious and they want to go and read some of the books that we've been talking about,
The fastest way that I've searched it is if you like look up where I've been and then Dan Heiser,
Okay.
it'll be the first thing that pops up.
All right.
Where I've been by itself, not so much.
But if you type in Where I've Been by Dan
With Mike Heiser,
Heiser,
yeah.
and we're going to have that all listed in the show notes. So you'll be able to just scroll down and click a link, and we'll have that there so you can check out Dan's work. But we were talking about self-publishing, and do you have any thoughts or challenges that came up when you were in that space for the first time? So, I know you and I being good friends, you've heard me talk about things like imposter syndrome
Yeah.
or and you were just sharing that there's always funding that people have. That's kind of like a hurdle whether
The
you have
funny
it or
thing
not.
is,
There's always a
you
challenge.
mentioned imposter syndrome. I only experienced that like playing like Lord of the Rings tabletop games and all that stuff.
Really? Okay.
Like when I'm actually leading them, but like when it's the writing, I'm like, no, this is like when it went out, I'm like, oh my God, I'm an author. This is actually like I'm no
Yeah.
longer a writer, I'm an author.
Okay.
Because the second in my opinion, and this goes, I think, amongst the whole bookstagram, book talk industry,
Yeah.
all of that stuff, where it's like the differentiation between an author and a writer is someone who writes, an author is someone who's actually been published.
Okay, see, I didn't know that. That's good information. So you're a writer when you're working on something
Yep.
and doing it personally, but
But
once
the
you've
second you're
had
published, whether it's news, articles in magazines, stuff like
yeah.
that, whatever, the second your name is published, you're an author.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, I knew that you'd been published. So I thought, of course, you're an author.
The funny thing is, I haven't actually said I'm an author in years.
See, like, I know how hard that is, but you are an author. And that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons I wanted you on this podcast.
I think it's probably because like it's a vanity thing,
But it's not.
but it's not, but it is.
But I think too, it's just like, yeah, sometimes it's hard. I know as an artist, it's hard to call myself an artist. And I'm like, okay, I forgot that I was an artist a few weeks ago. Dylan had my degree framed. And so I just relearned like who I was. And I was like, I don't even need to like shy away from this because I paid good money to get that degree
You did.
to say that I'm an artist. And you have put in the hours and you've got degrees and multiple, I mean, you're working on your PhD. So you have the time, the lifestyle, you've put in the work to call yourself that. And we all should not shy away from calling ourselves what we are, whether it is a author, an artist, a photographer,
Yeah.
whatever you are, wooden spoon maker. I don't know what you do, but like if you do it and you do it a lot with your whole heart,
Or an
that's
adorable
what you
sleeping
are.
dog. I mean, look at that.
Or a sweet little beagle named Winston. Yes, he's finally settled
Oh
down.
my goodness. He
He's
is
so
so happy.
I want to get into what you're doing now. So let's talk about your bookstagram.
Yeah.
Am I saying that right? Bookstagram?
I think it's Bookstagram.
Okay. Building an audience of people who
Originally,
are writers.
it
or
wasn't
authors.
supposed to be a writing author aspect.
Okay.
No, my Instagram is, like I said at the beginning, it's memes.
Okay. So book memes and stuff.
It's more so like just comedic audios of like, oh, when your friend reads. I think one of my most popular right now is like when your friend reads your book right after you finish the first draft and they go, "Are you okay?"
I saw that one. I do remember. And you're like, you're good, right? Like, and you're like, no.
It's
I mean,
internally, no.
Yeah. That's so funny.
But it's stuff like that. It's connecting to like trying to like self push myself out there, but at the same time, it's like I'm here for just the fun.
I think that what I'm not a writer or author, but I do. Well, maybe I am, and I didn't know it.
You're a bit of a writer.
Well, okay. But anyways, I was
More
gonna
so
say
an
not
actor.
so much like books and stuff, but I do appreciate your writing journey. And I feel like your Bookstagram is a place where other fellow writers can really receive that relatability
Yes.
of like the struggles of writing a book or, what it is like to have these characters exist in your head.
What it makes you
and-
fall in love with a character,
Yeah.
and then they're the secondary character, and you have to kill them, and then you're like, God, I don't want to kill this
Yes.
character.
And I think they're fun when I can only imagine just like you said, having a character exist and then for the plot to keep going, you've got to kill them off. And you're the creator doing that. And you're like, oh no, I'm gonna
It's easier
miss
when
them.
you don't fall in love with them.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Well,
those
that's
are
cool.
those are the, in my opinion, the ones that fail the most.
Okay.
You
Well, why's
have-
that?
So if you don't love the character enough and you have no problem with it dying, then the reader's not going to care. There's also a lot of authors who just kill the character for drama effect, aka the entire Game of Thrones series. But
See, that would be hard, I feel
like
like.
killing off a character for plot reasons makes no sense.
Yeah.
There has to be a reason you're killing the character off,
Yeah.
not just to piss off your reader. And I feel like
Or make the drama.
yeah, exactly. And I feel like that's a lot of what authors do these days, where it's like, oh, this is the most loved character, I'm writing him out. It's like, why would you do that?
Yeah, you gotta have that intentionality behind it of like,
Yeah.
what was your intention with it?
There has to be a reason to actually kill them off. Otherwise, it's going to flop hard.
That makes sense. I see where you would say
or the
that.
book's not going to be picked up again. Or like a lot of my friends thrown across the room.
Oh, I don't know if I've done that to a book. Maybe.
I've thrown plenty of books, not for the reason of getting mad, just because I want to get it away from water.
Yeah, yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about your books, what you hope that the characters take away from reading them. Or not characters, I'm sorry, the readers.
Reader? Yeah.
What do you hope that the reader takes away?
Honestly, it's the diving into realism.
Okay.
So the first off, hopefully whoever reads it gets interested in actually history, like actually wants to look more into the historical value behind the book. For example, with It Begins in Rye, I'm not going to spoil a scene, but there's a mention of the HMS Royal Oak.
Okay.
And that is a very big impact in...
Is that a ship?
It's a ship.
Okay, I thought so.
Big impact in the book and big impact in the beginning of World War II. Probably right after the Phony War, when World War II really amps up, right after the Battle of Britain. And so I just really want people to go, okay, this is an interesting tidbit that's in the book. Let's actually look into the real history behind it.
Yeah.
The second thing I hope readers take from it is like just feeling the emotions that it like actually gives. Because it's like, hey, you've read this. What did you feel?
Yeah.
Like, did you actually feel the emotions that like it's trying to give, or did it fall flat?
So I think that when you're writing anything, whether it's a song, a book, a poem, you hope to communicate those feelings that might not be everyday feelings that people feel.
Yeah.
So when you're writing, a lot of people, I mean, there might be a couple, but there's most of us alive right now have not experienced war to the extreme of what World War II or any other little battle.
Wood.
Yeah, knock on wood. But, I remember my grandfather who passed away early on in life. He was in World War II. And there was a really special little ceremony we did at school. And there was only, probably a couple handfuls of grandparents who were left. And I read about it or see it in the news a lot. There's not a whole lot of people left like that. So those stories are only getting passed down in that way from people like you who have done the research to understand what exactly, went on, not just from a factual standpoint of like this hit that or, this ship sunk, but from the people who who experienced it.
Yeah.
And it's secondhand, but you've read those diary entries or those stories about, those nonfiction, even though you're a fictional writer, a historical fictioner, you've read those memoirs. And, I feel like it's a really responsible and powerful position that you're in, because if you don't communicate those feelings that war might bring or, bigger points in history might bring, then we're not going to take that seriously. We're not going to take those times and really give them the respect they deserve, because we don't know. And we're doomed to repeat it. Right. But I was going to say, because we don't know, we don't know what all really happened. And so to paint those stories from your own interest in history and being a historian, plus your love for writing, plus your love for other books and reading, and taking all that and combining it into a passion and a career, that's a really responsible thing to do, because it communicates that to younger audiences, to new people who haven't experienced that stuff firsthand. So that's a victory story. And I feel like, you won already, because it's you that is both interested in it and it's you that's creating it. So you get to be creative. And so,
going off of that, no, you're right. I know I've sold like maybe a good chunk of copy. I honestly have not kept track. I intend to kind of keep track with the newest one once I actually publish it. And I want to see if I can.
Yeah.
But the reviews themselves, it's just going, because like there's days when I'm like, I'm bored. I'm gonna go back and actually read the
Read the
reviews,
reviews. Okay.
and like just the impact that it had on people, where it's like he's actually a good writer. He actually makes these people believable.
Yeah.
It's impressive to actually bring something that happened 80 years ago to today.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, it's amazing because it's impacting people today
Yeah.
who weren't even alive, probably not even
No.
like, thought about like, and now they're reading your work about something that happened, affected everyone,
Yeah.
alive or not, like, I mean, we all talk
We
about it.
still
We
talk
learn about it.
We watch movies about it. Like
Exactly.
movies are still being made about
Yeah.
it.
And like you said too, it's really important to have even a like even if you're just watching the movies and stuff, have an idea of what it took for that stuff to happen because you don't want it to happen again.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. And I also want to add this. I know as a creative myself that finding the strength and courage to go back and read reviews, to go and keep up with, the numbers and the analytics of things, most creatives, I mean, I don't want to speak for everyone, but most creatives, that's not the first thing that they think about. Like you're
No.
trying to get something out of you when you create something, and want to do that first and foremost to the best of your ability, create. So a lot of times we put that, I'm sure I know everyone cares about what people think. Like it's something that in human nature, we all are looking, whether we want to admit it or not,
Yeah.
we're looking for
Attention.
approval, attention, acceptance, I think is a big part. That's
Yeah,
really where I was
yeah.
going is we all want to be accepted. So when we put our heart out there and it's something that we really care about, it does matter that people like it and that
Yeah.
it's received well. But I was getting to too, it's not usually the first thing that we're like, okay, like how many copies, how many reviews, how much money, how many
Money. Yeah.
numbers, like that. I go with that number
I
thing.
feel like everybody goes to the number thing because
But
it's just the one thing they're like, it's either the money or how many.
But that doesn't matter.
No, I
It
don't
doesn't.
care.
That's not the victory that
No,
that's what I always get into is like,
exactly.
I know that you were saying with this next one, you want to, look at that a little bit more. And I think that shows in your own writing career from an outside perspective, like just maturity, because it's like, okay, I've done this. It's hard to even produce or publish something.
Yeah.
So to have those, couple, 2, 4 out of the way, now you're looking at this from a new point of view, which is I'm going to make another one. And this time I'm going to maybe look at some other things and keep this in the back of my head of like, trying to check up on things. I do it with my podcast. I'm like,
Yeah.
I mean, for real, I've really just now started being like, all right, let's look at the analytics.
Yep.
Which topics do
Yep.
people enjoy? And
Yep.
it's like, but for the first, 60 few episodes, it's like, I'm doing this because I've got something inside of me that needs to be out.
Exactly.
And I think as a writer,
And honestly, that's how you should look at everything. But here's the thing, like if you look at everything as that stupid dopamine chase, like,
yeah,
I'm guilty of it. I will say, like every time I post a stupid reel on Instagram, I'm like, oh, I got to see who liked it.
yeah,
And it's like just one person. It's like, so I'm trying to get to that aspect of not even paying attention to that and like walking away and letting it grow and come back to it and go, oh, 10 people liked it.
your
Fantastic.
people are going to find you.
Oh, eventually. Yes,
They will find you.
always.
And
it goes back to like not just Instagram, not just everything. Like I will brag a little where like looking at the reviews, I have not seen anything under 4 stars.
that's awesome.
The only reason why 4 stars showed up is because the second book that was published, Where I've Been, which I take much pride in it because I really consider that the first one.
Okay.
Because it was like professionally edited, everything. I did it myself. The only reason why it was a 4 stars is because it reminded the reader of All Is Quiet on the Western Front. And I'm like, but it's not.
Yeah.
Because Where I've Been is literally the World War I aspect of a cavalry
Okay.
fighter. He literally has his horse taken from him, and then he's like, you know what? I'm going with the horse. You can't stop me.
Oh.
And for the first half of the book, you follow him, and then I think I've actually shown it to you, the silver award, the little silver disc
Oh, yeah.
that I have framed. Yeah, that actually inspired the second half of the book because he gets injured, sent home, gets the war badge.
Oh.
And
Where did you get that?
eBay? eBay.
Okay.
Most of my World War I and II collection comes from.
I love that. So you're a collector too. We hadn't even talked about that. I mean,
actually, we haven't. I haven't collected in a while. I think I stopped after my trip to Normandy. Got the sands from Normandy and Dunkirk, and then I just didn't want to put money into it anymore.
well, I love that you've again taken your interest with history and made something out of that interest. So it's not just a passion that you have, but you're also sharing it with other people.
Trying to.
Yeah. Well, like we mentioned, the people are going to find you. You just have to keep showing up. Yeah. And when you're working on different projects, whether it's a PhD, a book, making a new website, I don't know, whatever creatively you're working on, not you, but just as a creative. Yeah. You're going to be introduced to new audiences, new people, new influences and things like that. So I think once it sounds like you've got a great handle on it, once you figure out what it is you like there's going to be people there. It's not going to be the whole world, like, you know, it, but
no, you find your people,
but you find your people, right? And when you do find those people, then it's so much easier to start making content, whether it's be a book.
When it comes to that is always right for you.
Right for you.
Like,
yes.
do it for you, and the people will follow afterwards.
And I'm going to add to that because I've loved this lately is find it. Once you find your people, you're like, oh, they're similar to me and I can keep making
100%,
this
100%.
for them with them in mind.
Yeah.
So I like that you're working on your PhD.
Yep.
You've got another book in the works. Well, I have a question. Okay, so this just came to me. So if we have any aspiring authors who are listening, maybe they're writing and stuff, and they have ideas come to them all the time. How do you decipher what you should actually put time and energy into making a reality, writing? And how do you say, okay, that character is awesome, but not this time, and put that character kind of back in the
shelve them?
Yeah.
Oh, I hate that feeling so much.
Is there any advice you would give to people who are flooded with ideas and they maybe need some help to weed out the good ones, maybe put some on the back burner until they kind of develop more? How do you pick which ones you're going to write first?
So it comes down to flushing out an idea. I used to be a pantser writer.
What does that mean?
Basically someone who just writes and doesn't plot anything.
Okay.
And I still am because I don't like outlines. I never liked outlines. So I don't like outlines.
Okay.
When I have to do them for homework projects, they're great because at first I find them completely useless. And then actually when I'm writing the paper, I'm like, oh, this is what I want to do. And I can write this faster because I'm actually following this.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to your question, it's find two things. The first, generally plot out the whole thing. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be front to end.
Okay.
It has to be have a beginning, have a middle, have an end. Pinpoint that. And then if you're a pants writer, just write as you go, write your feeling, whatever. But at least have an idea. The second thing I'm going to say is when it comes down to taking priority, whatever is coming out the most, whether it be a character that doesn't fit the plot, adapt them a little. If you're attached to this character, adapt them to fit the plot.
Okay.
If you have too many ideas like I do,
that's where I feel like
it's
most of
the
us
worst.
Fit.
It's the worst because you sit there, you go hung on project A, and then you get 3 chapters in, and then a new idea blossoms, and you're like, okay, if it's a strong enough idea to take over, let it take over.
Okay.
If it's a weak idea, adapt it to fit what you're working with.
Ooh, okay.
That is what I always do. If it's an idea that can actually fit into the plot that I'm working with, change it and fit it in. It becomes a secondary story.
Can you give me an example of how you've done that in some of your writing?
So recently, an abandoned project that I hope to return to was supposed to be a modern day Rumpelstiltskin.
Okay. I love the story of Rumpelstiltskin.
Not many people do.
I do.
And I don't know why.
Because it's not really a good movie or good
but it's
story,
a good message.
For mothers.
It's a good message.
But yeah, no,
I trust random strangers who will promise you the fortune.
I mean, it worked out with me and you. Right? You were a random stranger and I was a random stranger, and look at us. 5 years later, we're still friends. But no, I get what you mean.
But
so that's a cool idea.
So that idea blossomed, and I was like, okay. And then I had another fantasy idea that popped up, and it had to do with teleportation and all that stuff.
Ooh.
So the whole plot of this modern day Rumpelstiltskin that I still want to write is he has lived like 6 centuries, maybe more.
Okay.
He's like everything that happened in the original Grimm's tale is true except the part where he dies. Like currently he has 6 children because he's made deals in the modern time.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. And like his oldest knows, so he's trying to become the new Rumpelstiltskin.
Okay. That's
And
interesting.
he has this really, because like we're in that era of like everybody wants to be their own entrepreneur, all that stuff. So he has his own business where he like makes millionaires by like getting rid of their debt, all that stuff. And he finds people who have like major debts and all that stuff and makes them go from negatives to millionaires.
Yeah. Okay.
And so he finds this chick, falls in love with her by accident, and he takes her on a date. And in the middle of it, after the 2 days he spent with her, she's gone from like 0 to 500,000. And they're on this date, and she goes, "You know who you remind me of? Rumpelstiltskin."
Oh my goodness.
And he
Okay.
goes, "What? Excuse me," and goes to the bathroom and then teleports to Germany because anytime you say his name, he goes back to his origin.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So the whole
So he's
teleportation
gone.
idea that I took from whatever that plot was supposed to be, I twisted it into that book.
Okay, I like that. And now it's two ideas that have been merged into one.
Yeah.
I really do like that. That's
So
good
that is
advice.
my always go to. It's if you have a good idea and it can't be by itself, do it. If you have a good idea but it can mix into what you're doing, mix it.
Adapt the ideas because
Yeah.
there's a reason they're coming to you.
Yeah.
Like,
And they don't stop.
and they don't stop. You're right. Well, that is really good advice. And I think it inspires me to go and take a look at my ideas list and
You got a good couple ones too.
yeah,
We've talked about a
reevaluate.
couple of them tonight.
Yeah, we have. Well, I know that you are currently working on a couple things that we've talked about, but we haven't really talked about things that have influenced you. Do you have any songs, books, authors, movies that you are really inspired by and influenced by, whether it be in your writing style or with your love for history that maybe you think someone listening hasn't seen or heard of yet?
I found an artist on Instagram
Okay.
that is I've never heard anything like this. He's
Music artist.
music.
Okay.
Elias Alexander.
Okay. And why do you like him?
He's taken like Scottish fiddle and bagpipes and put it into pop music.
Oh,
Right?
right. What? I'm gonna have to hear it. But don't play it now because I
No,
don't want to get
'cause
copyright.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
what's his name again? So
Elias Alexander.
okay, and he's on Instagram.
And he's on Instagram.
Okay.
And he's awesome. And I think Tuesday after work, he doesn't have a lot of stuff on YouTube, but I put his YouTube on and just started writing.
Huh.
And he is good.
Is it lyrics? Is it just the music?
There's a couple lyrics, but it's just mostly the music.
So you listen to it while you're writing.
I'll listen to music while I write. Usually it's probably Vera Lynn, anything 1940s, because it just gets you in the setting.
We hadn't even talked about your love for the 1940s.
No, we
which is
haven't.
I'm glad you brought it up because I did want to mention that we talked about how much you love history and you have a love for a lot of different things, whether it's writing. I know we've talked
And
a lot
you
about
caught me on a day where I'm not dressed like it.
yeah. When I first met Dan, he only wore 1940s, nice, very
Button downs,
dapper.
ties.
Is that right to say
Yeah,
dapper?
yeah.
Very dapper.
Waistcoats.
And you have a very nice wardrobe. Takes, again, your love for something and incorporates it into your real life in a way that is not seen very often
No.
anymore, but can be appreciated when you ask why.
Yeah.
So, like, what is it that you love about when you put on these clothes? Is it that you've, like, tell me, what is it that
It's
you
a confidence
feel?
booster.
It's a confidence booster. Okay. So, elaborate a little bit.
So when you change your aspect of anything, like whether it's your clothing, your hair, whatever, it's usually to make yourself feel better.
Yeah.
And now it's even harder to get back into it because it's like you're comfortable.
I can see that. I've had even this year had to really start, because I work from home. I have a home office.
Same.
Really start like putting in the effort to be like, okay, I am going to an office today. I need to put on what I would wear if I was going to like an outside of the house office.
Yeah.
Because if you I mean, there's nothing wrong with wearing like your sweats at your home office. Like
No,
there's nothing wrong with that. But I do know you do
you
that
feel
enough
better.
and yeah, and you start to get comfortable like you said. And so I love that you wear things that not only embody like that those characters from your stories or those, people that you hear about and read about from the memoirs or from like history
Yeah.
movies and things like that, but you also receive that confidence boost of
Oh, big
like
time.
this is
Big time.
nice and I stand out in a
And
good
people
way.
people compliment.
I wanna know, where do you get those clothes? Like, do you see them? Do you order them from a special site? Do you
So
thrift? What?
most of my button downs came from my dad.
Okay.
So he's president of a custom clothing, and like, so I order my shirts from him because
Okay.
family discounts.
Little, no shame plug
No
there.
shame plug there.
Yeah.
And then the waistcoats are genuine vintage. So all of them, like I only have two. One's from 1945. The other I think is from 1938.
You're
Um,
the perfect person to have them. Like, I know
I want more. I want more.
they found the right home. Like, I
The
love that.
the black one is easier to wear because the other one's tweed and you can't wear that in summer.
Do you have, like, a soldier?
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
I've got actually a couple. I think the army shirt that I've worn a couple times is 1942.
Wow.
Bomber jacket of the 7th is 1945, 44.
Oh, that's amazing.
And then the wow, you got me thinking.
Well, I was gonna say these people, like, I feel like this
Some of them
adds
actually have names in them, and
no way.
yeah, I want to look into them further. But
I love that. Like, that is so interesting, and that makes me so curious, and
that silver badge from that I was talking about
yeah.
earlier has an actual ID number of an like. I went down that rabbit hole so deep that I actually found his name, his wife, his children,
What?
how he got the award, and I found everything and I framed it all around it.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
interesting. Are you inspired by those items to write any of your characters?
Uh, I'd say a little bit.
Okay.
Um, More so, those items are just to remember them.
Yeah.
Like, for example, my prized possession is a 1938 to 40 pilot logbook. These are the
Oh,
hardest things to
wow.
find.
Real pilot
Pilot
log.
logbook.
Oh
Oh,
my
yeah.
goodness.
Pilot logbooks are really hard to obtain because they're really expensive. And this is Charles Albert Leslie Bevins. He's a sergeant of the Royal Air Force.
Wow.
And I have his picture. I have two of his medals. I have his RAF cap badge and his pilot logbook and his information on where he's buried. That actually sparked my capstone project for my master's.
Oh, okay.
I put him in there, and I'm also putting him in my dissertation. I think he's in chapter 1, and he'll probably go further in depth into chapter 3 or 4
Wow.
because it's going to be about the actual planes that he flew. So
The
like the
actual
tiger
ones in the
moths.
in the logbooks.
So yeah, so the tiger
Oh,
moth, and I think he flew two planes. One was just for training, the other was a bomber, and then he died April 22nd, 1940. But it's actually logged at the end of the book where it says killed in action April 22nd.
it really does circle all the way back
It
around
really
to
does.
the beginning of our conversation, which was the responsibility that you have when you have been God gifted you with a passion for history
Yes.
and also paired it with a passion and talent for writing. And the way that you have taken your love for both of those things and have paired it with real things, real people, and the things they actually did, like the logbook. And now you're keeping what they did alive. Like
Yeah.
you're respecting it not only with, your interests and stuff, but you're keeping their stories alive. You're appreciating it the way that I feel like it takes a very special person to be able to appreciate because it's like you're putting yourself in that story
Yeah.
and you weren't even alive when it
No.
happened, but you still are connected to it. And that to me is so beautiful. And it's just this big picture of life that I feel like shows, how God uses us to make the world a better place, to continue to share stories like his, and then to also give you a new edge because you're writing these incredible fiction books,
Yeah.
but they're based on real people and real things. And so, yeah, that's just a very interesting victory story. And you have your own victory. There's no war or battle, but there are, here in your
Internally, maybe.
yeah. I was gonna say, as a writer, probably internally.
There's a lot of arguments you have with your characters.
Yeah, I can only imagine. But you do a really good job, and I'm so proud of you as a
Thank you.
friend. And so that's why I wanted to have you on, is because I feel like it's just a completely new perspective of being a creator that I haven't talked to on the show before. And there's so many people out there that do what you do. Just in my world, you're the first. And so I appreciate you for doing what you do, for loving it the way that you love it, and being the creative that you are.
It's been a pleasure. This has been great.
Well, my fellow artists who tune in and creatives that tune in, I know they're going to appreciate that you're doing what you do. And if you want to go and follow him so you can see what he does next, Dan, where can we find you online?
Yeah, really only one place, which is going to be Instagram, dans.book.corner.
That's cool. And I love that you share your book recommends and share more about the writing process over on your Instagram.
Yep.
So if you're listening now and you want to hear more about Dan's book interest and recommends, hear more about his upcoming projects, keep up with him as he finishes his PhD, then you can find him at Dan's Book Corner. Thank you, Dan, for coming on.
Thank
Is
you,
there
Tori, for having
anything
me.
else you want to say while you got a mic in your hand?
Don't give up on yourselves.
Awesome.
I mean, this world does it constantly. Stop doing it.
Believe in yourself, advocate for yourself. Don't give up on yourself.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much, Dan, for coming on. And we will talk to you again soon, hopefully.
Oh my gosh, yes.
All right. Until next time, Tori B. Glass here with Dan Heiser, author, writer, creator, artist, awesome friend. Until
Been a
next time.
pleasure.
All right. Bye.